Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell in the upper right-hand corner. Follow me on all forms of social media. Check me out at thatdrummerguy.com and enjoy the following presentation.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good. You're a bit low here. I'm going to see if I can... Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. It's actually coming through pretty good.
Okay. Just yours is so low, I can barely hear you.
Oh.
Gonna be these things? 2 seconds. I just found these things lying around, just so your voice doesn't come out of the speakers and back in.
Oh, sure.
But I have no idea how these work. Well, I mean, I do hear you, so it's not too bad.
Oh. Is that any better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Just jam these really in my ear.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're good.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
No problem. It's fun.
Oh, awesome. Well, of course, we're here to talk about the brand new album from Moron, A Boat on the Sea, which is available now. I've been able to check this out over the last few weeks, and with it being out over the last few weeks, I just love where you guys are at right now. I mean, I've loved all the material before, but I really love the direction that you guys are going in right now.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a bit different, I guess. More prog rocky, maybe more pop rock. I don't know really. They just sort of, the songs just ended up being like that. It wasn't really a conscious decision. When the songs started coming, they were just like, oh, this is different, and I like it. I'm sort of stuck with it.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, it's great to see that a band that can be known for something like Teabag Your Grandma is able to put out a 32-minute, like, classic album now. Like, this is easily one of, if not my favorite albums of 2019 so far. And it's
Thanks.
great to see that evolution of the band, showing that that Moron Police doesn't just stick to one style of music. It just goes with what's natural, and I think that's what's best for a band.
Yeah, I mean, that's just sort of what happens when I start writing songs, and I've never sat down with a song or a guitar, just like, I'm going to make a metal song, I'm going to make this and that. They just sort of drop out of the sky, and I can include a lot of different genres because it feels natural to me. I never felt that it was the sort of disjointed, but I think on this album, for a lot of other people, I think stuff makes a little bit more sense. It's not that disjointed. It seems more streamlined, sort of, in a certain way, which I think is good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it feels so natural, again, like I was saying, and yeah, I mean, it might be a little more streamlined, but it totally works for the band, and, you know, it's just, there's such incredible songwriting and musicianship that's going on with this album, and, you know, it's so great to see that, so, you know, like, after taking a few years between albums and, like, really being able to show off what you guys are doing now, it's so cool.
Thanks. It took a while. It took way too long, but it's mostly because of... just because of life, really. Getting older, had to get a education and stuff like that. And we all sort of live in different parts of Norway, and Norway is an extremely long country. It's hard to get places. So that, and also because it's really expensive to record. A lot of these songs were done maybe 2 years, 3 years after Defenders, maybe 2. And then it's just been sort of polishing them and just getting everything ready to actually record, and just out of nowhere, it's been almost 6 years.
Yeah, and, you know, that's what's funny to me, because when I listen to the album, especially lyrically, it really feels like it was written today with what's going on in the world, let alone 6 years ago.
I think I was lucky with that one, really, because when I wrote that, most of those lyrics were written before Trump was in the White House, and before a lot of this other stuff. So it's a bit strange that a lot of those lyrics were written during the Obama period, right? He was doing a lot of drone stuff, right? And a lot of the drones that America used to bomb people were made in Norway, actually. Oh. Yeah, so it's a little bit about that, sort of the hypocrisy of Norway being such a, sort of like a, you know, trying to broker peace around the world and being so, like, sanctimonious and righteous, but actually, well, we're making the drones, we just don't arm them. So we sell the parts to America, and they put them together and then arm them and then use them. So it was sort of about those kind of things and, like, religious warfare, but then it's just gotten worse, so there you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's the double-edged sword that comes with it. I mean, like when you look at the album, it's just like there's so much bad that has happened in the world. I mean, especially within the last 6 years, but it's also made for some quality music on the side. So it's a bit of good and bad, but at least artistically, it's like it's a great album that came out at a great time.
Yeah, it's been getting a lot of we got a manager. He happens to be part of my family. Didn't really know that when I started talking to him, and he's just done a really good job with it. We were just gonna record it and just throw it out into the ether and just let it be there. But he said, "Well, no, this is good. Let me work a little bit with it." And it's actually paid off really well. It's getting a lot more buzz from doing this with you. It's been fun.
Oh yeah, and I've been a huge fan since the last album with Defenders, and it's just it's great to see with this album that there's so many people that I check out who do music reviews who don't always check out like prog music or heavy music that are checking out Moron Police for the first time, and it just makes me so happy to see that.
Oh, it makes me happy too. I mean, we didn't make it easy for ourselves with that name, so. But it's just that name just sort of sticks now. It just has to be that now. I actually like the name, but I understand that people, you're browsing around on the internet and you see some Moron Police. What the fuck is this? Just next. So it's fun. I've always felt that with the music that we make, and probably especially this album, is that there's a lot of people that would like it if they could hear it, and that's sort of the battle. Just listen to it. Maybe you'll like it. You'll probably like it. Maybe. Okay, if you don't, who cares? And that's actually, I've never been too much of a fan of Spotify and streaming services. As a consumer, I really like Spotify, of course, because you have everything. But from like a business point of view and all that stuff. But the Discover Weekly thing, that we got like 4 songs on Discover Weekly now, and that's been fantastic. It's got lots of plays and lots of people like writing to us like, "Hi, I found you via this, and this is fantastic," So that's been a huge help, actually.
Oh, yeah, and again, that's another double-edged sword that comes with that, too. It's because, business-wise and financially, I know streaming services and Spotify are not the best thing for bands. I mean, considering how low the payment is for streams, but when you take things away, you get to see how many people are checking out the music, then they're actually going out and buying the albums, they're buying merchandise, they're going to see you guys live. So
it has sort of a domino effect to it. I was sorry, what were you saying? It's very low, so I have to...
Oh, I was just saying that, I mean, that's part of that double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is, but it has sort of a domino effect. If you get picked up sort of by an editorial playlist or Discover Weekly or this sort of stuff, and also word of mouth, of course, you start to see results both there and in other places. People will go buy your stuff and they will go see you live if you play live. But the problem is for a lot of other bands, it's like if you don't get that initial push, you're sort of just trapped in a bunch of noise and you're just there. It's made it really easy for the big companies to really like control what's out there and what you get to hear. So whenever you do get a push like we got with this one, and it is getting now, it really, really helps, but it can also just be purgatory for a lot of bands, I think.
Oh, totally. And, I'm glad to see that you guys have risen above that ether now. And, hopefully that continues to stay because you guys have deserved it with how long you guys have been in the game and how much every album just seems to get better than the next one. And, it's just, you guys deserve it.
Thanks. I mean, I'm happy that things are happening, sort of. And I don't think I'll ever be able to actually live off or even pay rent with the money from the music, but it makes me happy that people listen to it. I'm a sucker for praise, I have to say. I'm horrible like that. I love my own music, but I love when other people love it as well. I don't mind if they hate it. That can also be fun. I like reading like horrible reviews. Remember, we got a 0 out of 10 on Defenders. It was fantastic. I'm just happy that somebody listens to it. Because, you put your heart and your soul and a lot of your time and a lot of your money into doing something, and it's sort of sad if it's just, especially if you think it's pretty good and then people would like it. So I've been like super happy this last month, really, and leading up to it.
And I'm glad to see that too. I mean, when I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a sucker for praise, especially with how long this album has taken to be coming out, and just being able to really appreciate where you are now when it comes to music. So the fact that 6 years later and you have a quality album like this, and you're starting to see worldwide results with it, that's such a great thing.
Yeah, I'm like super stoked about it. I hope the next album won't take as long. I don't know if I can top this album. I'm a little bit afraid of that. But then again, yeah. But what's really nice, like if you go on Spotify, you can see like where are people listening. I mean, it's not there's more and more people, which is great. But the fun thing is that like there's some in Japan listening to it. There's Mexico, Brazil, like everywhere, France, UK, and like. Really? I sort of like, I'm not sure I trust it. Like, are you lying to me, Spotify? Is it true? But I think it is. So it's very cool. And we don't have too much merch of the new album just yet. But like the people will buy Defenders stuff, and we'll like ship it off to Mexico and ship it off to Israel even. And not Afghanistan, but all over the world. And it's like, oh, we're doing this. It's fun.
Yeah, that's great to see that people are actually going back and checking out the older material as well too, and enjoying what they're hearing and wanting to go out and get the merch for the past album. Yeah,
we're definitely seeing like an increase of like more streams for the older albums and even some sales and stuff like that. So it's been fun to see. I also sort of noticed like with another band I play in called Major Parkinson. We can see that like streams and stuff, it stagnates if nothing is happening, but the minute you release something, everything just gets a boost. So I think probably a lot of like modern promoting is just keeping yourself in the public's image, sort of. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's another great thing too, because I love Major Parkinson, and it's great to see that there is that crossover that's going on between both bands.
Yeah, we started out, I've always been a huge Major Parkinson fan. I'm not too much of a fan of a lot of bands in Norway, but those guys were like, yes. And we got like a warm-up gig for them in Stavanger, a place in Norway. And just start generally befriending those guys. And after moving to Bergen, I said those were the guys I was hanging with. And so they needed 2 new guitarists, and I was out drinking with them, and they sort of convinced me. I didn't want to join because it was my favorite band in Norway. I was afraid I was going to ruin it. But they convinced me after a couple of beers, man, a lot of beers.
And what's that like for you, being able to do that crossover between the two? Because they have two very distinct different sounds.
Yeah, definitely. The biggest change was especially on the live thing, because it's much more serious. Not that Moron Police isn't serious, but it has... In Moron Police, I jump around like an idiot on stage and sing, and it has a lot of exuberant humor, not just humor, but a lot of like feelings of happiness, I guess. With Major Parkinson, there is some of that, but mostly you have to sort of look the part. It's sort of dark. It's technical. There's a lot of more stuff going on. So it works well. I think the Moron Police has been called by some guy the Major Parkinson on antidepressives. I like that.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I love that. But
yeah.
So, with all this in mind, I mean, now being able to be in two bands and now seeing the success of what's going on with this album, I mean, how do you feel now that the album is out now and you can start focus on promoting it and doing live shows for it?
Like, how do I feel about that aspect of it?
Yeah, like the relief of like the album finally being out and being able to focus on the adventures.
Yeah, that was sort of. I think I was almost close to crying when I just had it to finish. But I was like, oh god, that took so long, and I was very happy with it because I didn't want to half-ass this album. I really didn't. Not that we'd ever do that, but I really wanted it to. I thought the songs deserved to be as good as possible, and so that took a lot of money and time and all that sort of stuff. But just getting it out there was just. It's hard to describe. And there's also sort of like a tinge of melancholia, sort of a bit sad also, because now it's done and I have to do something else. But it's also great to see like the response and all that stuff. It's been wonderful. As for the live gigs, we really want to do live gigs, but our keyboard player Lars, he's going to be a dad next month. And because of that, we don't really know how much time he'll have. Like, what can we do? We can still play as a trio, but we can't play the new songs as a trio. So it's sort of like, well, we might have to wait a little while. We've been really wanting to go to, especially the United Kingdom, because it's not so far away. It's just a small flight. So we've been sort of looking a little bit into that, but no real plans yet.
Well, at least the idea of what could be is on the table as well. But, that's a great thing to happen, too. I mean, with Lars now becoming a dad soon next month. And, that's so important to be able to have life. Even if the music starts to strike, I mean, it's still important to be able to have the life on the side as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had disillusion that there's going to be tons of money in this and that you'll be able to live off of it. I think it's possible to do, but that would probably require playing a lot of bands, touring 250 days a year, probably, maybe more, maybe less. And that really limits your ability to have a family, right? And just sort of have a normal life. And I've grown accustomed to it. If we had struck big when I was 18, I probably wouldn't be saying this, but both him and I, we work at the library in Bergen. We really enjoy that. It's great. We don't work 100%. We work about 60%, and that gives you time to do lots of band stuff on the weekends. You can tour. So it's a very wholesome thing.
Yeah, and to me, even though it's kind of shifted from being able to do music full-time for so many bands and now being able to do other aspects of the world, to me, I think that's the best of both worlds, so you never get burnt out on one side or the other, because especially back when people were doing so much music 100% of the time, you could see so much burnout and how much they never wanted to play music anymore after being forced to album play live, album tour, and now when you do it like this, you're able to still have a good life on the side, and you're still able to play music when you want to.
That's right. It's I think that's a great setup. We did a European tour with Major Parkinson, and I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, and that was at the end of that, I'm holy shit, that was exhausting. I can't believe people do this for months and months and months, and then just record something, and then again and again and again. And every biography I've ever read, and I do read a lot of those at the library, every big band, every big artist, is always the burnout. And then you got the drugs, and then the burnout on the drugs, and then you either get suicide or something else, shit happens. And I think it's if you're going to do something you really, really like, you shouldn't do too much of it, I guess. So I think it's nice to have, to have the safety of a job, and so you're economically at least stable, and then you're basically your hobby or your other passion that you can do on the side. And just because it's not on the side doesn't mean that you don't give it 100% of what you got.
Oh, totally. And, that's why I also love the fact that you work in a library, too, because you are able to read so much. I mean, it can be fiction, nonfiction, just anything that you're looking for when it comes to reading and being able to become more knowledgeable. I mean, I think that's so important to things that can be really inspired in life in general and in music. I think
so, too. I mean, it's hard to know what will inspire you. I read a lot of books, but at the library, I'm also a sound guy. It's a pretty big library. I'm a sound guy. We do lots of everything from classical concerts to big talks about politics, talks about the environment, whatever. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there. So you get exposed to a lot of different stuff. Both and I read a lot of comics. I also work at the prison, the high security Bergen prison, as a librarian. And of course, you get very different impulses there than you do. So there's a lot of, technically very bad people that I spend a lot of time with them. And that's I would assume that's going to sort of color me in some sort of way. I just don't know yet, but maybe I'll become a criminal. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I mean, the music might get a lot more darker, might get into that black metal Casio keyboard style for the next Moron Police album.
That would be fun. There's a lot written for the next one, but I'm not sure if it's going to be used. I usually sort of write around until I find sort of a feeling, or it's just sort of like a sound. I hear the songs are sounding like this, and it seems like they fit together. And until that happens, I just sort of write around. But we're thinking about maybe doing a concept album. I've always wanted to do one of those since I'm a big prog fan, but it's hard.
It's funny you say that because it feels like this album feels like a concept album when you listen to it, and the fact that you want to go even further into it and make like a full-on concept album with the next one. I mean, that's so cool to me, being a prog nerd myself.
Yeah, this has always been the dream. I've tried like some fledgling attempts when I was a bit younger, and it never really worked out. On this album, on Boat on the Sea, there was like 3 or 4 songs that were starting out as sort of a concept thing, and then I sort of went away from it. I didn't think it was interesting enough. So, but the album is made like a concept album. You have your openers and your closers. The first song, Hocus Pocus, all those chords are the intro chords to Hocus Pocus are the same chords on the last song, Isn't It Easy, just they're heavy there. The last part of Isn't It Easy is the same as Hocus Pocus, and there's tons of that sort of stuff. I'm a sucker for that. So I've really sprinkled it out everywhere.
Yeah, and that's just so cool to see that too. I mean, even if it's not a full-on concept album, just like the fact that it harkens back at the end from what you hear in the beginning, so it even subconsciously, it kind of feels like a concept album. There's so much good in between those albums, or in between those songs as well too. Like the Undersea, the beginning riff is easily now one of my favorite riffs that I've heard in 2019. Oh, it sounds hard to play, but when you listen to it, it just sounds so cool, and it's easily one of my favorite riffs I've heard probably this decade, if not this millennium.
Wow, that's cool. And the chorus for that song is, if you heard the intro melody on Visible King, that's the chorus of Undersea.
That's right. Of
course, the last part of Captain Awkward, the slow guitar thing, is also the chorus of Undersea.
Yeah, and again, it's just, it's great to see that, how it's like interconnected that way too. I mean, that's just so cool to me.
Yeah, I really like that. So since I'm prog nerd, same as you. So yeah, the dream has always been to make a concept album. I think this one has a sort of almost like a theme. It feels, I agree with you. It feels like a concept album. When you're done with the album, if you listen to it, it feels like, I just had a sort of a story experience or something. But on the next one, I'm looking at doing a story. This is the thing, because this one is getting a lot of sort of praise because it's like, they've matured into this. They used to sing about teabagging your grandma, and now they suddenly, what the hell is this? They have depth to them? I didn't know this. And so, but the concept I was been thinking about for the next album is about a guy who joins a cult, drinks the lemonade, is not aware if it, dies, goes to hell, meets some sort of a devil, and then has to spin sort of a reincarnation wheel and gets reincarnated as a pachinko machine in Japan, where he then becomes a pop star. And I really want to do that. But the problem is like, well, what happened to all the depth you had in the last one? Well, let's see what we can do with this. Because when you do a concept album, you're tied down by your concept, right? So it has to have a lot going for it, I think.
If that does come to fruition, I can tell you right now, the year that comes out, that will be my favorite album of the year. I love that theme so much. I love that concept.
That's good. I mean, like, I said that it has to have depth, but when I think back, like, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, I mean, the lyrics, I love the lyrics, but, I mean, it's just sort of like a journey where weird shit happens. He gets his penis stolen at some point. So how weird is it for a guy to turn into a pachinko machine? How weird is that really?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because a lot of people don't talk about that part of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway.
You got the slipper men, man. They're ball sacks. They're literally ball sacks, balls that have had their penises removed, and they have it around like a neck. I mean, there you go.
And, even with a concept like what could happen in the future, I think there could be a lot of depth to it, because, it's like some people love paying attention to the lyrics of an album. Some people just focus on the music. And, it's just like, if someone even just listens to the music on this album, you're able to hear that depth of what's going on with it. And you can hear that on Defenders as well, too, I believe. So I think it could be done on the next record, even with that concept.
I think I agree, and I think maybe that, because there was a lot of that on Defenders, it was hidden more. Also, maybe a little bit more afraid of doing that sort of stuff. But you're buried in sort of in heaviness. But it's there. I was always sort of a little bit sad that people didn't pick up on it that much. But then again, there's a song called Teabag Your Grandma there, so you can't really blame them. But I think that now that this album is out and we've sort of established that we have that in our sound now, I think people will be looking for it on the next album as well. Like if it's not as much as this album, they will still say like, oh well, it's still there, and it will be there. If you're doing a concept album, it's gonna be crazy. It's going to be bigger and better and more of everything, but in a good way, not in that bad Hollywood way.
Totally. So, with that in mind, getting back to this album, I absolutely love the cover, and I think it's such a great display of what the album is. I mean, like, even if you just come across the album cover, I think it intrigues you enough to actually go out and check out the album if you've never heard of the band before. So how did that come together?
Well, it's the same guy that did Defenders, and I really, really love him. I have a list of different artists that I found that I really like. I'm really into art. And usually I try to find them, like, I can see that this guy's going to be big, he's got something, but he's not there yet, so I'll contact them then, so it's not too expensive. So that's what we did with Defenders, with Dulk, Antonio Segura, Donat, I think his name is, hard to say, Spanish. But he was starting to, like, get traction, and you can see that this guy is fantastic. He's going to be huge. So we snapped him up for Defenders, and then in the last like 5 years, he's gotten a lot bigger. He travels around the world, does like murals, street art. That's where street art. And so I've talked to him a lot and sort of become like pen pals. I'd say only on email. And so when I asked him to do this one, he was down right away. And I think this one spoke to him a little more clearly than the other one, because it has sort of like a clear tone and style. So I gave him some pointers, just not a lot of pointers, just some tips. I really wanted just a boat on the sea, and then you could go crazy, basically. And I wanted it to be sort of vibrant, but he picks up on that. I wouldn't have to tell him that. And he just did an amazing job.
Yeah, totally. And, I'm glad to see, it's like when you look at the Defenders album cover and then you look at Boat on the Sea, I mean, it's great to see that diversity of what he's capable of and how much that he really has come as what he's done over those years.
Yeah. And, like, Defenders was a beautiful cover as well, especially the vinyl. Has a lot of nice art in it, but that was all done digital. This one is actually just a huge oil painting that he did, which is really cool. I was impressed, because that takes a lot of time, I think.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that too, if that was done digitally or if it was actually handmade, and it's great to see that it actually was an oil painting, because it just looks so authentic that way.
Yeah, I mean, he painted it by hand, and then he had a photographer dude come and take like a high-res photo of it. So it's going on the wall as soon as I get around to printing one out. Though we were thinking about maybe even selling some prints of it, just for not for much. So, but a lot of people have been asking, just can we get the art somewhere? So, and I guess like a vinyl release would do that. So we're sort of looking into that, but it's really, really expensive. So don't know yet.
Oh, totally understandable. But yeah, I mean, if there was like some kind of just like just like a lithograph or the vinyl or something like that. I mean, I think that'd be such a cool idea as long as the demand is there.
Yeah, we definitely want to do it. Also just because I love vinyl, and I'd love to have a vinyl of all my albums, like hanging on the wall at least, if not played. Also T-shirts and stuff like that. But right now we're probably thinking about doing maybe like a crowdfunder for a small amount of it. So if the crowdfunder goes through, it happens. If it doesn't, people just get their money back, really. So it's sort of like a no-lose situation, except, you don't get the vinyl. But we'll see if that's what we're going to do. We can also play a couple of shows, save up some cash, and then do it, but that's going to take a while because of the Lars and the kid, probably. So that'll probably have to wait like a half a year, which seems way too much. Like you sort of have to strike when people are listening to you, right?
Yeah, that can happen. But, it's hard to say what is the right direction to go in music. Like, even if the iron's hot, it's like it could be building things up to where it's like, I really want to see these guys live. I hope they can play live someday. And then, it's just like when you're building that fan base for the album that you have now, and then half a year later, boom, it's just like the fire's still there. And, it's just that demand of wanting to see you guys live could be there.
Yeah, definitely had that when we started. Like we had maybe like 3 years of not much happening, and then with the new guys in the band, we started doing like gigs, especially like around the south of Norway, around my hometown. Like people still care, and it was like, holy fuck, there's a lot of people here, like for our type of music. So that was fun to see, especially anywhere we've been playing lately. There's been a lot of people, and it feels like it's sort of grown organically a little bit. and hopefully he continues to do that with this album. So I'm looking forward to trying to play this stuff live. It's not easy to play live because there's a lot of vocal harmonization and stuff like that. There's saxophone. It works well as a 4-piece, but I'm a sucker for vocal harmonies. So I'm going to try to get some backup singer and stuff like that. That would be cool.
Oh, totally. It's just, when you listen to the album, it's just like, I envision of what it could sound like in that live setting if everything's perfect. And yeah, if you're able to get like some backup singers to be able to do those vocal harmonies, I mean, that would just be incredible for the live show.
Yeah, that's always what we've been missing, is just vocal harmonies. The rest we can sort of deal with. We can play, I also know like the saxophone dude, but it's just hard to tour in Norway with like a lot of people because the country it's really expensive. Gas is really expensive. Everything's expensive. Renting a car that can fit everybody in, driving 7 hours to one gig and maybe 8 hours next. Like if you go in Bergen, Oslo, Trondheim, it's probably like 40 hours of driving. So it's hard to do. And of course, you could try to play something somewhere else in the UK or something like that, but it's also a lot hard to arrange that, and you don't know if anybody's going to come, and it can be a little bit difficult. But we've gotten some festival bookings now for the summer and next year, which I'm looking forward to, because then they fix everything. They buy the airplane tickets, you can just fly over there. They got a hotel for you, you play, and you get paid, and it's great.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I mean, what is it like for you playing, whether it's a club show in Norway compared to doing the festival circuits?
Well, the festival circuits in Norway are they're very pop oriented, so there's exceptions to that. But like the biggest festivals, they either die or they do like pop and Spotify techno sort of stuff. So most of them have become just a big party rather than like a music show. I remember like when I was about 17, 16, I went to a festival. I got to see like the Mars Volta, Muse, and Mastodon, lots of cool stuff. And now it's just regular pop acts. Maybe you get a Kanye West if you're lucky. I don't know. So it's hard to do. It's hard to get in at festivals. But the ones that we've gotten now is basically because we played like live shows and people have seen us live and you should come and play. And they're not like typical pop festivals. We would love to go play like Roskilde. That's always been a dream. But I'm not really sure how to do. I've been mostly managing the band myself, except from the very start. So it's been hard to like push it out there. It takes a lot. You got to write thousands of mails. You got to go places. You got to meet people. So now that we have a manager and he's going to take over booking duties too, I think after a while, we'll see what he can do. It might be able to happen.
Oh, that's... Again, it's so great to see that. I mean, it's just like these festival opportunities are starting to happen now. And, even with the band not being able to tour 24/7 and, constantly going around the world, I do appreciate the organic audience that's been built up, rather than just having like one gigantic single and then like seeing all the fallout from like people just checking out the rest of the album and it's not for them. I mean, just having it built this way where people are actually enjoying each album, they're enjoying the actual songs off the album, and then you're able to build that real fan base that comes from that.
Yeah, that's I've never really thought there's a different way to do it, but it's probably because that's how I became a fan of bands, right? We release one really great album and like, wow, this is fantastic, and then the next album comes, wow, this is even better, and then sometimes there'll be a flop in there, but I've always felt I'm a big fan of albums. I like listening to something from start to finish, and all the bands that I've ever liked have always released good albums, not just good singles, if any singles at all. So it felt natural to sort of do that. And I guess, it seems like it's sort of creating like an organic following. People like the music and people sort of keep following it, show it to other people, which is very nice. Like word of mouth is fantastic. I mean, on Facebook, you have to pay to reach the people that have already liked your page. So word of mouth is still absolutely the best way to do it. That and email lists, actually.
Yes, and I couldn't agree more with that. And, and speaking of that as well, too, A Boat on the Sea is just another one of those albums that I think is a perfect way of what you were describing, like an album from a band that you want to check out all of the songs. And, I mean, I'm always that kind of person. Like, I don't even listen to singles until I hear the entire album in full, and then I go and check out and see what the singles were for the album, because I'm such an album guy. And that's exactly what A Bone on the Sea is. It's a great album, just a little over a half hour, but it's so impactful. I mean, whether it's the riffs, the lyrical content, or when you're able to go back and check out like how all these songs are connected, at least musically, through the riffs. I mean, it's just one of those albums I think people are going to be able to go back to constantly, and I don't think I'm going to be alone when people make together their best of 2019 lists and seeing Moron Police at near the very top, if not at the top.
Yeah, we've got some great reviews, and like it seems like people are very surprised. Really, the only negative thing is that it's too short. But I've always liked short albums, and like most of Frank Zappa's best stuff is just like 28 minutes, and that includes like 12 minutes of his soloing, which I'm not a fan of, by the way. I'm probably the only person alive who doesn't like Frank Zappa soloing. Everybody seems to love it. But yeah, so I think the album is so dense with a lot of packed ideas that sort of reference each other, both in sound and in composition, that even though it's just like 33 minutes long, I think there's more than enough to sort of give you more on the repeat listens, I think. Yep.
Oh, totally. I mean, when the album's done, I go immediately back to the top and start listening to it again, because I think it is one of those albums that, because it is so short, it makes you want to go back and constantly listen to it. And I think that's for the benefit of the album.
I think so too. And while it wasn't meant to be sort of like made for the streaming age, it sort of is. Because since it is so short, I think a lot of people listen to it a lot more times, really. And like, I just listened to the new Tool album today, and it's 1.5 hours long. I was like, oh God, it never ends, and every song was sort of like samey. It was sort of like being lost in a desert. I just like, sitting down, getting like a good album, half an hour, it's refreshing, it's great. I'll listen to it again.
I was curious about that, because I just woke up a little bit ago, and I know the new Tool album came out, and I was going to go check it out, and that's like one of the first times I've heard anything about the new Tool album in full, so that gives me a little bit of what to expect from the album, because I've known that on past Tool albums where it does feel like it does go on way too long, and the riffs just kind of just like drone on for a long time, so it seems like they kind of stay the course on this one?
This is a lot more of that. I thought it was pretty bad, actually. Well, it's not bad, it's just very bland and boring. It's the same thing just over and over again. But I've only heard it once, though, so I'll give it more. I'll give it some more shots. But like, it's 1.5 hours, so it's really. I mean, the songs just sound very samey. It's got the same sort of like, it's got the jug, and you got the bass with the bam with some delay on the bass, and then you have Carrie doing like like some sort of percussive stuff, and Maynard sort of like mellow in the back. There's very little of his like angry voice here. It's very mellow. So at least nothing stood out on the first listen. It's perfectly fine. I wasn't really expecting him to go like something completely different. It's Tool. Just they do what they do, and that's fine. But first listen, we'll see.
So as a fellow prog nerd, even if I do check out the new Tool album, kind of stick to the shorter Zappa albums then.
Yeah, I do. Like if you're gonna make a long album, like a really long one, I almost think it should be a concept album. At least there has to be a lot of interesting stuff there to justify that song length. I mean, I know so many double albums that could have been like one really great album if they just cut a few songs, and I don't really see the point of just making a double album for the sake of making a double album. It has to be like, well, it's brimming with great stuff, so it has to be a double album. But yeah, I prefer shorter stuff, unless it's a concept album like The Lamb.
Oh yes, and cutting off the penis and.
Yeah, the cutting off the penis, all that sort of stuff. It's great.
Oh yes,
it's great. I think that was also like 1 hour 20 minutes maybe.
Oh, right around there, yeah.
Yeah. And I never get tired of that one. I mean, I remember when I started listening to it, the first part was always easier to listen to, like the first album. It seemed a little more catchy. And I also got tired, so when it came to the second part, which is a little bit different, it was just but then I started listening to it from the halfway out, and then I was like, whoa, this is great. I'm an idiot. This is awesome.
Oh yes, it is a great album, and bringing things back around again. I mean, that's what I do love about A Boat on the Sea. I mean, even with the themes that are going on lyrically, musically, the cover. I mean, to me, it's just it has everything that I love in this style, and it's great to see this album come out. And it's been great to talk to you about all of it, everything that's going on in the world of Moron Police, knowing a little bit more about how you got involved with Major Parkinson, and just the state of the world in general. I mean, it was great to be able to talk to you about all of that.
It's awesome. I'm sorry that I was supposed to be in my studio and our studio and have like a nice setup with a great mic and everything, but then it just started thundering out here. It's pissing cats and dogs, as you say. So I'm very happy to talk to you, man. It's been awesome, even though my setup is poop.
Oh, not a problem. And, I'm thankful for you taking the time to be able to do this. And, even with it thundering out there, it's just, I'm very thankful that you took the time to be able to do this. So I've learned so much more about Moron Police, and it was great for you to be able to take the time to be able to do all of it.
Yeah, no problem. And it's the weekend today. I don't work today, and I got the whole weekend off. I'm just going to order pizza now, grab a couple of beers, maybe watch some football, and do absolutely nothing at all. So it was my pleasure.